We often talk about how governments spend money, right? The massive budgets, the crucial projects, essential services.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what we don't always stop to consider is how they get that money, especially when it involves borrowing. It's, not just about the spending, but about the very specific rules and boundaries for securing those funds.
Exactly. And at the provincial level, this process becomes, well, even more intricate. How much autonomy do they truly have to raise funds? What are the inherent limits? And, why are those limits so critical?
Right.
These aren't just dry legal questions. They're really foundational to a province's financial stability and its ability to deliver for its citizens.
And that's precisely what we're diving into today. Our mission is to unpack an absolutely foundational piece of legislation.
Yeah.
The Borrowing Powers of Provincial Governments Act of 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while the title might sound maybe a bit dry, like something straight out of a law textbook.
It does have that ring to it.
Yeah, this act is basically the bedrock for how provinces can fund their crucial work, from building hospitals to maintaining roads. So we'll explore its purpose, key provisions, and the real-world significance for everyone, whether you're just curious about how government finance works or maybe you're a law student digging into its legal context.
And to understand the act, you really have to start at its very roots. This isn't just some arbitrary piece of legislation. It's explicitly mandated by the Constitution itself. Specifically, sections 157.1 and 157.2 lay the groundwork.
Okay, so what does the Constitution actually say about provinces borrowing?
Well, it sets clear boundaries. Section 157.1 states that provinces cannot raise loans for current expenditure. That's your, day-to-day running costs, salaries, utility bills.
The operational stuff.
Exactly. But they can raise loans for capital expenditure. Think big, lasting investments like building a new school or a major road. The crucial caveat, though, is that this must be within a framework of reasonable norms and conditions prescribed by an act of parliament.
And that's where this act, the 1996 Act, steps in. It's the very piece of legislation that defines those reasonable norms and conditions.
Precisely. And Section 157.2 adds another layer for short-term borrowing. It allows for what's called bridging finance for current expenditure.
Okay.
But this comes with a really strict condition. It absolutely must be paid back within 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So this act we're discussing, it elaborates on those short-term conditions too. It essentially brings the constitutional mandate to life with practical guardrails.
Okay, so to truly unlock the power and maybe the essential limits of this act, we first need to sort of speak its language. Because like in any legal document, common words here often carry very precise technical meanings, right? And they're crucial for understanding these guardrails.
Absolutely. Understanding the specific language used is like half the battle when interpreting a legal document like this. Let's maybe start with two terms that sound similar but are distinctly different in this context. Bridging finance versus a loan.
Okay. Bridging finance. My intuition tells me that's something temporary, like a cash advance for immediate needs. Is that close?
Very close, yeah. The Act defines bridging finance as funds raised within the financial year, denominated in rand. Its sole purpose is to finance current expenditure.
The day-to-day stuff again.
Right, the day-to-day in anticipation of receiving current revenue during that same year. So I think of it like a very short-term cash advance or maybe an overdraft for daily bills with the clear expectation that regular income will cover it within the same financial year.
Got it. So bridging finance is for covering immediate gaps for day-to-day costs, always expecting a quick repayment. A loan, then, must be, well, fundamentally different.
Exactly. A loan is specifically defined as money borrowed to finance capital expenditure. This isn't just legal jargon. It's the fundamental guardrail making sure provinces can't borrow long-term for daily expenses. It's about protecting taxpayer money and preventing unsustainable debt.
That naturally leads us to the distinction between current expenditure and capital expenditure. Now, for many of us, this might sound simple, but the Act seems to have a very detailed and specific definition for capital expenditure.
It does, yeah, and it's quite comprehensive. Capital expenditure basically means any payment by a provincial government for acquiring new or existing tangible or intangible assets.
Right.
With a value higher than a prescribed amount and a life expectancy of more than 1 year. So think Major long-term investments that build or significantly upgrade infrastructure, new hospitals, major road systems, maybe large-scale software systems.
Right, the big ticket items.
Exactly. And what's crucial is that it also includes capital transfers to other bodies for capital use, or even repaying an existing loan if the new borrowed funds are specifically for capital purposes.
So it's about building and upgrading, not just keeping the lights on. And what about current expenditure? How's that defined?
Well, simply put, current expenditure is anything that isn't defined as capital expenditure. And crucially, the Act excludes normal maintenance. Just keeping an asset in its original state of repair from being capital expenditure. That falls under current expenditure.
Okay, that clarifies the spending side. What about the income side? We've got current revenue versus capital revenue.
Right. So current revenue is defined as all income of a provincial government, except for receipts from bridging finance, loans, or specific capital revenue or capital transfers. Think of it as your regular recurring income like taxes or grants.
Okay.
Capital revenue, on the other hand, specifically includes income intended for financing capital expenditure and, importantly, any proceeds from the sale of capital assets.
And just for clarity, the financial year isn't just any old 12 months, is it? There's a specific time frame.
That's correct. For the purposes of this Act, the financial year is a standardized period, April 1st in any given year to March 31st of the next succeeding year. And this standardization is, well, it's vital for consistent financial planning and reporting across all provinces.
Right, keeps everyone on the same page. And finally, in this definition section, who is the responsible member in all this? This person sounds like a pretty central figure.
They absolutely are. The responsible member is the member of the executive council of a provincial government who is responsible for that province's financial affairs. So, in essence, it's the provincial finance minister acting on behalf of the provincial government. This person is the key signatory and decision maker for all borrowing powers and financial commitments under this Act.
Okay, now that we've got the language down, let's talk about the architects of oversight. Because provinces can't just borrow arbitrarily, can they? There must be like a coordinating body.
Precisely. This brings us to the Loan Co-ordinating Committee, or LCC. It's a critical body established by the Act itself to ensure fiscal responsibility and coordination.
Who are the key players on this committee? Who's actually in the room?
Well, the committee consists of the National Minister of Finance, who chairs it, and the responsible member from each province or their duly authorized representative.
Ah, so it's a direct interface between national and provincial finance leadership, all the key finance ministers together.
Exactly. It brings them all into one room, figuratively or literally.
And what do they actually do? What's their core function in this, complex financial landscape?
Their role is absolutely crucial. During a financial year, they are tasked with coordinating the borrowing requirements of all the provincial governments. And this isn't just about adding up individual provinces' wish lists in isolation.
Okay.
They have to consider the aggregate demand for capital market funds across the entire country.
Wow, okay, so they're looking at the bigger national economic picture as well, not just what each province says it wants. That sounds like a critical balancing act.
It absolutely is. And in their deliberations, they must take into account the total debt of each provincial government and any bodies they control, plus their contingent liabilities, that's potential future financial obligations, like maybe a guarantee they've given for a provincial entity.
Oh, okay. Potential risks down the line.
Exactly, plus the risks involved, and crucially, their ability to actually service that existing debt. This holistic view is vital for national fiscal prudence.
And they report to the Financial and Fiscal Commission, the FFC. What's the FFC's role here? Is it just receiving reports?
Yes, they report to the Financial and Fiscal Commission, the FFC, in a manner that allows the FFC to effectively fulfill its own functions as laid out in the Constitution. The FFC is it's a crucial independent body established by the Constitution itself to advise on intergovernmental fiscal relations.
Right, like the referee between levels of government on money matters.
Kind of, yeah. It helps ensure financial fairness and sound practices between national and provincial governments. So the LCC's reporting ensures that this independent oversight mechanism is fully functional and, importantly, informed.
This sounds like a pretty tightly controlled system, really designed to prevent provinces from maybe overextending themselves financially. So let's unpack the actual borrowing powers themselves and, just as importantly, the limits imposed on them. Who can even initiate a loan on behalf of a province?
This is a key control point for accountability. The Act states unequivocally that only the responsible member may borrow money on behalf of a provincial government.
Only that one person. the provincial finance minister.
That's right. This centralizes accountability squarely with them and other provincial departments or bodies. They can only accept financial assistance from any non-national government source with the responsible member's written approval. This prevents any unauthorized or sort of rogue borrowing.
That makes perfect sense. It's all about clear lines of accountability. Are there restrictions on the types of financial products provinces can get into beyond just simple loans?
Yes, there are. Provincial governments cannot commit themselves to any financial product other than bridging finance or standard loans. That creates an interest or any other kind of financial exposure, unless it's specifically prescribed in regulations.
So no complex derivatives or anything too exotic without explicit permission.
Basically, yes. It limits their venturing into potentially complex or high-risk financial instruments. And importantly, regarding bridging finance, while it's allowed for those short-term needs we talked about, it cannot be raised as a continuous and unlimited revolving credit.
So it can't become like a permanent overdraft facility.
Exactly. It's strictly for temporary anticipated revenue gaps, not an endless credit line.
What about foreign currency loans? Can provinces just go out and borrow in dollars or euros? That seems like it could introduce a whole lot of risk, especially with exchange rates.
Generally, no. The Act is quite strict here. The responsible member shall not obtain loans denominated in a foreign currency or incur foreign currency liabilities unless very strict conditions are met.
Okay, that sounds like a significant hurdle.
Yeah.
What are those strict conditions and why are they so tough?
Well, first, it requires the explicit approval of the National Minister of Finance and adherence to any conditions determined by him or her.
So national oversight right away.
Absolutely. Second, the responsible member must fully motivate the reasons for the loan, justify it to both the minister and the Financial and Fiscal Commission, the FFC.
Double scrutiny.
And third, the minister must be satisfied, after considering the FFC's recommendations, that the loan's conditions comply with generally accepted principles of loan agreements, and crucially, that its conclusion is in the public interest.
Wow.
These are significant hurdles, and they're there precisely to manage foreign exchange risk and ensure any such borrowing aligns with national financial stability goals. It's a big deal to borrow in foreign currency.
It sounds like it. So domestic loans, those denominated in rand, must be a bit more straightforward then? Still controlled, I assume, but easier.
They are, relatively speaking, but still tightly regulated. The aggregate amount of rand-denominated loans to be raised by each province must first be considered by that Loan Co-ordinating Committee we discussed.
The LCC.
Right, the LCC. And consensus must be reached among all members, the minister, and all the provincial responsible members. Once consensus is reached, the minister informs the FFC in writing.
What happens if they can't reach consensus? Does a province just miss out on borrowing for crucial projects if one province or the minister objects?
No, the Act provides a vital mechanism for that exact situation. If the committee can't reach consensus within 21 days, the National Minister of Finance can determine the aggregate amount each provincial government may borrow.
So the minister can override the lack of consensus.
Essentially, yes. The minister may request a recommendation from the FFC on the matter, but ultimately the determination rests with the minister. And crucially, the minister must make the reasons for such a determination public.
Transparency is key there.
Very much so. It ensures accountability when broad agreement isn't achieved.
Okay, and is there any small buffer amount? Like, can they borrow just a tiny bit more than they absolutely need for contingency?
There is, but it's very tight. The total amount of outstanding loans raised by the responsible member during a financial year cannot exceed the expected line requirement by more than 0.5%.
0.5%. That's practically nothing.
It's a very narrow margin, yeah. It really emphasizes strict adherence to planned needs and fiscal discipline, not much wiggle room.
So how exactly do provinces go about raising these rand-denominated loans? What are their practical options once an amount is agreed upon or determined?
Provinces have several prescribed pathways. They can secure loan agreements directly with the national government, but that needs the concurrence of the minister, who might actually advise them to pursue other, potentially more favorable options first.
Interesting. So the minister might push them towards the market?
Could happen. They can also borrow through an institution specifically established by an act of parliament or one approved by the minister, specifically for lending to subnational governments.
Like a dedicated infrastructure bank or something similar?
Potentially, yes. Or they can go the more direct route, engage directly with banks or financial institutions, or even issue their own public stock and bonds or other financial instruments in the capital markets.
Okay.
In those direct market cases, the responsible member determines the terms and conditions and can furnish security, like provincial assets.
That's quite a range of options,
Yeah.
but all within those clear controls we've discussed. And then there's something mentioned called an interest cap. This sounds absolutely critical for keeping provincial debt sustainable over the long term.
It is indeed. This is a really vital provision designed to prevent provinces from taking on too much debt relative to their income stream. Basically, the total expected amount of interest a provincial government incurs during a financial year on its outstanding debt at year-end cannot exceed a certain percentage of its total budgeted current revenue.
So linking debt servicing costs directly to their regular income.
Exactly. And this percentage isn't fixed. It's determined annually for each provincial government by the minister, who may request a recommendation from the FFC. And again, transparency is mandated. The minister must make the reasons for this determination public.
Why is this cap so important?
Well, it's not just an arbitrary number. It's a powerful mechanism forcing provinces to continually assess their debt burden against their actual income. It acts as an early warning system, you could say, preventing them from potentially falling into a debt spiral that could cripple their ability to deliver essential services down the line. It keeps things grounded.
And ultimately, who is responsible for paying back these loans? Is there some kind of national bailout clause hidden in the background if a province gets into trouble?
No, the Act is crystal clear here, and this is fundamental. Any monies borrowed by the responsible member plus the interest are the financial obligation of that specific provincial government.
Solely their responsibility.
Solely. It is chargeable to and payable from the revenues and assets of that provincial government. This reinforces provincial financial responsibility and ensures that lenders, banks, bondholders are truly assessing the province's own financial health, not just relying on some implicit national safety net.
With all these complex financial operations happening, borrowing, spending, managing debt, accountability is obviously paramount. So what mechanisms does the Act put in place for transparent record keeping? How do we track all this?
Right. Every provincial government is required to maintain specific books of account for each financial year. These must cover both budgeted and actual transactions. This ensures there's a clear, auditable record of where money is coming from and where it's going. No hiding places, theoretically.
And there are two key financial statements they have to maintain based on these books.
Yes, two primary statements, and they're both prepared on a cash basis, which is important. First, there's the Statement of Current Transactions.
Okay, what does that show?
This records all the current revenue received, all current expenditure charged by law, and any current revenue that has been specifically earmarked or made available for capital expenditure. And importantly, it also tracks the receipts on repayments of any bridging finance.
Got it. The day-to-day flow and the second statement.
That's the Statement of Capital Transactions. As the name suggests, this records capital revenue, any current revenue that's specifically been allocated to capital expenditure, and any capital transfer receipts. On the outflow side, it tracks all capital expenditures, any outstanding loans due for redemption or conversion during the year, and critically, the proceeds received from new loans.
These statements aren't just for, historical record keeping, though, are they? They feed into crucial financial indicators for planning.
Absolutely. They're not just bean counting exercises. The statements feed into two really important calculations for strategic financial planning. First, there's the capital surplus.
Capital surplus, what's that?
This basically tells you if a province has more capital-related income coming in, that's from capital revenue, current revenue they've allocated to capital, capital transfers, and new loan proceeds, then it's spending on capital projects and repaying old loans. It's essentially a snapshot of their capital funding position at that point.
Okay, a measure of their capital cushion, maybe. And the second calculation.
That's the expected loan requirement. This is their precise, forward-looking target for how much they need to borrow for their planned capital development in the coming year. It's calculated by taking their total budgeted capital spending plus any loan redemptions due and subtracting all their budgeted capital income sources plus any capital surplus carried over from the previous financial year.
Ah, so it's the gap they need to fill with new borrowing for capital projects.
Exactly. It's the critical number that guides their borrowing strategy for the upcoming year, ensuring they borrow based on planned need, not just on a whim.
So this brings us back neatly to the general rule we touched upon earlier, which seems incredibly significant. If a provincial government defaults on a rand-denominated loan, The national government does not step in and guarantee it. This is a monumental takeaway for anyone lending to or investing in provincial bonds, isn't it?
It truly is. This is probably one of the most crucial points in the entire Act for financial risk assessment. The general rule is unambiguous. The national government does not furnish guarantees for a provincial government's financial commitments incurred from raising bridging finance or rand-denominated loans.
Wow.
This means provinces are largely on their own for these types of borrowings. It signals a very clear line of accountability, and risk lenders need to understand they are truly assessing the province's own financial health and repayment capacity.
That's a huge point. Are there any exceptions to this non-guarantee rule at all?
There is one very specific, narrow exception. A guarantee from the national government can be furnished for foreign currency loans, but only in terms of a National Exchequer Act.
Ah, only for the foreign ones, and under stricter national law.
Precisely. This implies a much higher level of scrutiny and control when foreign currency risks are involved, reflecting the national government's overall responsibility for the country's foreign exchange position and liabilities. Rand loans. The province is on its own hook. Foreign loans, maybe, but only under very controlled circumstances.
And just for total transparency, what does the Act require in terms of informing lenders and the public about whether a guarantee exists or not?
This is another key transparency measure. All documents issued in respect of a provincial government incurring a financial commitment, loan agreements, bonds, etc., must prominently contain a statement indicating whether or not such a financial commitment is guaranteed by the national government.
No ambiguity allowed.
None. It's absolutely vital for lenders to understand their precise risk exposure and for public transparency regarding provincial debt levels and potential national liabilities, however limited. It leaves no room for doubt.
So we've covered who can borrow, the specific rules, the oversight, the financial statements, the guarantees. But who actually signs on the dotted line for these agreements? Who puts pen to paper to make them legally binding? And how flexible is the system for future adjustments and practical implementation?
Right, the practicalities. The Act specifies the signatories, ensuring the right level of authority is involved. For the major loans and agreements, things like those tricky foreign currency loans, loans directly with the national government, institution-based loans, and agreements with banks or other financial institutions, the responsible member of the provincial government must sign. The provincial finance minister again.
Okay, so the big commitments need the top financial person's signature.
Exactly. It reinforces their direct accountability for these significant financial commitments.
And for other, maybe more routine financial instruments, like issuing bonds into the market.
Other financial instruments issued by a provincial government, which aren't covered by the responsible member's direct signature requirement, are signed by the head official responsible for the administration of the provincial financial affairs, like the head of the provincial treasury or a person authorized by them in writing. This allows for appropriate delegation of authority for, let's say, the more routine issuance of financial instruments once the borrowing is approved.
Right, practical delegation.
Yeah.
And finally, the power of regulations. This sounds like it gives the Minister of Finance some ongoing flexibility to adapt the Act's implementation over time, without needing a full parliamentary amendment for every little detail.
Exactly. That's a key feature for adaptability. The Act grants the National Minister of Finance, importantly after consulting with all the provincial responsible members, the broad power to make regulations on various matters.
What kind of matters?
Well, this includes anything that the Act requires or permits to be prescribed, meaning detailed rules or procedures can be set out in these regulations rather than in the Act itself. It also explicitly covers disclosure requirements for provincial borrowing operations, ensuring transparency standards can be updated. And more generally, it covers any matter the minister deems necessary or expedient to prescribe in order to achieve the Act's overall objectives.
So the detailed operational aspects, the nuts and bolts, can be refined and specified over time through these regulations.
Precisely. It allows the Act's framework to remain relevant and responsive, hopefully, in a dynamic economic landscape without constant legislative changes.
And the official short title, just so we know exactly what we're calling it.
It's simply the Borrowing Powers of Provincial Governments Act, 1996. Act 41 of 1996, to be precise.
So what an illuminating deep dive we've taken today. We've really navigated from the constitutional mandate that actually underpins provincial borrowing right through to the specific definitions.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty terms.
Explored the crucial oversight mechanisms like the Loan Co-ordinating Committee, unpacked the intricate borrowing rules and their limits, especially those foreign currency rules.
Very subtle.
Looked at the detailed financial reporting requirements, those statements, and finally examined that really critical issue of national guarantees, or rather the general lack thereof for RAND debt.
Indeed. And I think what this deep dive really reveals is how the Act strikes a delicate and absolutely crucial balance. On the one hand, it grants provinces the power to raise funds for crucial capital development. The schools, hospitals, roads we mentioned, which is vital for their growth and delivering services to people.
Absolutely essential power.
But simultaneously, it imposes a pretty robust framework of responsible norms and conditions, coordinated oversight involving both levels of government and transparent reporting. This is all designed, really, to manage financial risk and ensure fiscal prudence across all levels of government. It clearly highlights that inherent tension between provincial autonomy and the need for central control over overall national financial stability.
It truly highlights that constant tension, doesn't it? That push and pull between a province's unique needs and development goals and the necessary central oversight required to ensure the country's overall financial health isn't jeopardized.
It really does. And perhaps as a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. This act was passed back in 1996. Think about the economic landscape and the specific development needs of South Africa's provinces then versus now.
A different world in many ways.
Definitely. So how does a framework like this, designed decades ago, continue to shape financial governance and fiscal prudence in our much more complex and dynamic economy today? What ongoing tensions might arise, or perhaps already exist, between a province's unique growth aspirations and pressing development needs, and that central oversight required for the country's overall financial health? It's a conversation, I think, that continues to evolve and is constantly shaping the future of provincial finance and ultimately service delivery.